We're here with Dr. Bruce Gilley, again, author, if we put up my screen, of the new book, The Last Imperialist, Sir Alan Burns' Epic Defense of the British Empire. I imagine that we hit a number of the main parts of the thesis. Just explain the general thesis of the book beyond what we've already talked about.
Well, the general thesis is, the British Empire was a force for good. It was a force for freedom. We in the United States are a legacy of the British Empire, and that this legacy is even stronger in places that didn't have a lot of English settlement, and that's why the people not showing up on our southern border are all from British colonies. There's no Bermudians crossing the Rio Grande. There's no Bahamians crawling across in rubber dinghies. There's no people from Belize or Barbados struggling with cartels to get across the border. I mean, it's just it's a fact we all know, but we're not supposed to say it. And what this book does is it goes through the life of a particular colonial official who made that argument, lived that argument, and was widely loved among the people he worked with. The funny story where his great-grandson is in an anthropology class at the University of British Columbia in the 60s and goes up to a black Ghanaian woman and says, my great-grandfather was actually the governor of Gold Coast, it was then called. And she says, that's terrible. You should really be ashamed of yourself, colonial oppressor, to be linked to a colonial oppressor. Anyway, she goes back to Ghana during the summer holidays and says, this guy told me he was a colonial government great-grandson, and I told him how evil that was, and they said, how dare you? We know Sir Alan Burns. He was the most famous governor here. We loved him. We wish he had never left. You go back and apologize to him. That's the reality, is this kind of woke generation has totally turned its back on its own family members' views, whether you talk about Martin Luther King or you talk about the Ghanaians who lived under colonialism. They saw that, the British imperial tradition offered an opportunity for liberation, and that's a very clear understanding. And it's only this woke generation that's trying to rewrite the history that way.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting. Well, Dr. Bruce Gilley, I want to thank you for coming on. Interesting discussion. Definitely, I can see why liberals don't like you. I can see why they threaten you. I can see why they try and get entire scholarly journals shut down. But, I mean, as we've learned over the past, at this point, year and a half, it's good to go against the prevailing narrative. And oftentimes when people do, not only does it open people's eyes, but it reveals just how bogus the prevailing narrative was. But I want to thank you for coming on, Dr. Gilley, and I'm excited to read your book.
Thank you.
And best of luck with the book sales.
Thank you. Really enjoyed it.